around my ability to actually sell this thing. So I didn't sell it again. I literally went into my shell. I serviced this one client who stayed on for a little bit longer, I think. Um, and it was absolutely phenomenal taking her through the process. And I knew that so many more women could benefit from this work. But, at the end of the day, I was still not quite there in terms of like fully embodying this stuff. I still had my own stuff around food that I was dealing with. And whilst I was very open with my client about it, it felt like there was a little bit of like I was out of integrity trying to sell it when I wasn't when I hadn't appreciated or hadn't realized the benefits of doing it myself. So I pulled that and I went more into body confidence. So you can see these are all like very similar themes, not a massive departure. Body confidence was me kind of saying, look, I'm in a bigger body and I quit dieting as part of my food freedom kind of quest. A few years prior to that, I don't count calories, I don't weigh myself, I ditched the scales, I doing mirror work to look at myself more lovingly. I'm learning the language that I need to speak to myself to feel like I'm accepting of that bigger body that I see, even though it's not what shapes up for society's standards. And that was really popular. That was a really popular time. I had a free Facebook group at the time. I had lots of people very interested in working with me, but I didn't quite nail the offers, I think, at the time. And that got pretty boring, just showing up with me in a bikini on the beach in a bigger body, or me kind of on a hay bale naked in a field because I decided to get my kit off and ask Adam to take a photo of me from behind so I could share it and show my unapologeticness in my bigger body. It just got a little bit tiring for me. And I didn't want to be known for that necessarily, but there was this confidence piece that was running throughout the whole thing. That thread was there. So I kind of ditched the body bit and just kind of brought back the confidence bit from like the day one stuff. And I had the confidence movement, which was a Facebook group that I had at the time. And I brought back my coaching, and people started to respond again. And I felt like I was onto something, but it also felt like my messaging was like not targeted to anyone in particular. So I had varying different people's coming to me, some that couldn't afford my work, some people that perhaps turned their nose up at it because it wasn't seen as expensive enough or high end enough. So it was kind of really confusing for me too. And I think it was around this time that I started working with a coach called Jana Kingsford. She was another 11 grand investment. I put down a lot of money on coaching because I believe in coaching, right? I believe in the power of it and how it can really support you in achieving what it is that you want to do rather than what the coach wants for you. Um, so I have dropped an awful lot of money on coaching, and it's all really served me in many different ways. And there have been some investments that I've made that the only lesson I've made is how to tell which coach I want to invest in and which coach I don't want to invest in, or how I want to coach or not myself. But we shall not go there. Anyway, I digress. So, yeah, it was at this time I started working with Jana, and she was just like so aligned with what I wanted to do in the world, which was just allow people to be fully themselves. And she was so herself online. It was so infectious. I think this is where I really ramped up the authenticity piece. And she was just like, we just need to get your voice out there without overthinking it. And it was at the time that I said I want a podcast. And I spent like 3 weeks on the name. What do I call it? And I was going to and fro in, really couldn't come up with it. And she just said to me, it needs to be called The Emma Clayton Show because this is about Emma Clayton realizing that her voice matters and that her voice is, or her name is enough. And I didn't like it, but I went with it. And I'm so glad I did because that was a whole situation. I did about 70 episodes on that one, actually. I interviewed all my friends about all the great work they're doing in the coaching world, in the self-development world, in the spiritual development world. And I introduced a lot of different modalities and people to the podcast. And my aim was really just to share the love of self-development that I have. And and the love of these people and the work that they were doing and the transformations that they'd been on themselves and what they were helping other women with, just to inspire and raise awareness that there is another way to think and feel about yourself, right? And so the podcast was born at the same time. I also wanted a membership because I had so much in me that I wanted to share from my last few years in business, from all the study that I did, because I didn't stop there. I did my NLP, I did my nutrition and lifestyle diploma, I did my mind body eating diploma. I went and learnt about Reiki. I went and learnt about theta healing. I did all sorts. I spent a lot of money on my personal development as well as my coaches over the last 7 or 8 years or so. And it's all been wonderful. And it's all added up to this like body of work that I had in me that was just busting to get out. So I created the Initiation Members Club. And that was on the basis that I knew I was a manifester in human design. That was another thing I studied, or have studied more recently, actually, with Sue Jones Miranda. I knew I was a manifester, and manifestors are here to initiate. And I really wanted to initiate this self-development journey for people, this awakening, this new awareness, this new way of looking at the world, this new way of being in the world, this fact that you get to choose. Actually, I had the Choice Academy before that. That was a little membership I had. It was called the Choice Academy because it's like you get to choose, right? You get to choose your destiny, you get to choose your outcomes, you get to choose your way of life and all that sort of thing. Anyway, so I opened up the Initiation Members Club, and I think at one point I had about 10 members in there, and they were paying like £55 a month or something. It was relatively low cost. And I would come in there, and every month there would be a theme, and I would teach on something that I had learnt. The first one was called Under the Hood. This was the brain science. Actually, no, the first one was called Initiate. This is my 8 tools of initiation. So it's things like breath work and journaling and meditation and theta healing and all the things that I was passionate about that I wanted to share. So there was 8 tools that you could turn to at any point that you wanted to like ground, come back into yourself, reconnect, all that sort of thing. Under the hood was the brain science. So this is what I learned in the in the Neuroscience Academy with Dr. Sarah McKay, who was recently on Mel Robbins' podcast. So she was my teacher in the Brain Neuroscience Academy. And I also did something called In Her Head with her, which is about the female brain science specifically. And this was all about how your brain works and how you can work with it to change, right? To change the story of your life, to change the habits of a lifetime, whatever it is. So that was the first one. Then we went deeper with Beneath the Surface. That looks like, uncovering some of them unconscious, subconscious beliefs and stories that we've gathered throughout the years and that have layered on top of who we really are to present this picture of who we are today, which actually, when you unravel some of that, might not be the truth of who you are. So Beneath the Surface was kind of digging into that, doing a bit of a timeline of how you've got to where you've got to, and where some of the things above the line that might have been like really great, amazing experiences that have shaped you, but also the ones below the line that are perhaps some of those more traumatic experiences that have shaped you in the way that you might not want to be seen today. And then it went on from there. I think after that, I did Belief Builder, which was introducing the equals game, which actually is a Jana Kingsford belief ethics tool. I actually did her coaching certification and one of her certified coaches that can teach on belief ethics. I've just called it the equals game because it's a little bit easier to kind of describe what it is. So the Belief Builder was a 14-day quest where we did belief ethics every day. We did the equals game every day on a different topic to start to build this belief in ourselves that we can change, that we can go and do the things we want to do. After that, I looked at the 7 stages of success. So this is where you set that big goal. You're like, okay, I want to leave the job, or I want to go travel the world, or I want to do this thing that's a big, bold dream out there, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. And the 7 stages are you start to take action towards the goal that you've set for yourself. Then you hit resistance. Then there's some self-sabotage in there before you pick yourself up and get going again. And you achieve the big dream in the end. So there was that piece. And then I think I did a confidence reset. So this is all about looking at your self-judgment as well as your judgment of others and how you can actually overcome that judgment piece. And there was the comparison cure, so how we can stop comparing ourselves to other people and live a more peaceful life because of it. And there was a couple of other lessons in there. and so on. So I did this for a year where I was delivering these monthly courses and I had people in the membership, and it got to the end where I felt like I'd exhausted all my kind of lessons that I had to give at the time, and I didn't really want to be continuing with this monthly kind of rigor. So I closed down the membership and I opened up what was called the Playground, which was basically a messaging kind of access to me, and the same low cost, so £55 a month. And some of the women from the membership came into the Playground and were in there for another 2 or 3 years before we shut that down, when one of them decided that she was leaving and we decided to call it a day. So that was a great time for me just to express myself, just to get it all out of me, all this stuff I'd learned, all this stuff that I was really keen to share with people. And I have all of those courses in my initiation vault now on my website. It's available to buy, but it's not something I've actively sold because, again, I've moved on from there. I've evolved from that stage of my life, and it's almost like I've kind of did that and I've moved on. And again, this is a manifestor energy thing. In human design, a manifestor is here to start things, not necessarily here to see things through, not necessarily here to revisit them and make them better. I'm just here to like initiate on the new, right? Um, and what I realized was, again, I'd kind of broadened my ideal client. I was talking to anyone that's kind of just wanted to go on this self-development journey, this self-discovery journey, and could get excited about it off the back of my excitement, right? It was just a bit contagious in that sense. And when I finished working with Jana, I actually took a bit of an exhale and retreated again, actually, because I was like, I'm not sure it's this. I'm not sure what we've created together over the last 6 months is what I want to be doing going forward. So I had another moment where I was like, I need to just give myself some space to let the next evolution of this business really drop in. And that's when Modern Lead had dropped in. It was 2022 at this point. So we've been through COVID. We'd been, I'd been through many other coaches in between all of those that I've mentioned. And yeah, I got to the point where it literally Modern Leader was that same kind of download that I had with the Food Freedom Academy. It hadn't happened to me again since the Food Freedom Academy, but it kind of dropped in like this framework, the pillars of success, who it was for. It was going to be for my corporate career women who get to lead in her own way. She gets to bring her whole self to the table. She gets to know, like, and trust herself. All these things, just it just all flooded in. This is in 2022. And I sat on that gold for a year before I launched what is now known as the Modern Leader Way podcast, this one that you're listening to now. So I launched this in 2023. We've just had the 2 year birthday. That was a year in the making. And I think it's because it felt so big for me at the time. Modern Leader, the vision that dropped in just felt so big. It was big because it was like what I was hearing was like when one woman at a time really looks at how she's been leading and then shifts that into a way that's truly authentic, truly in integrity to who she truly is, then and leads in a more feminine way, right? Because you've heard me say this before. Corporate world is made for men by men. So, of course, us as women to get along in this over the last 50 years or so has really had to behave like men, to act like men, to learn the masculine skills or bring more of our masculine online, which we have inside us, right? And when I talk about masculine and feminine, you might have heard me speak about this with Russell on episode 100, is that, the masculine is more the kind of left brain stuff that we talk about. It's the logic, it's the strategic thinking, it's the operational side of things, the planning, the financial side of things. It's all those kind of boom, boom, boom. Whereas the right hand side or the more feminine is like your creativity, your flow, your innovation, the kind of more touchy, not touchy feely side. I hate saying that when it's feminine. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. The more in touch side of things. So in touch with emotions, with your intuition, all that kind of thing. So it was really, for me, it felt big because it felt like a departure from what I've been talking about all along. Felt very specific in terms of who I was speaking to, and was potentially very dividing and repelling of those that weren't in a corporate leadership role. And that felt quite scary to do. So it took me a year, but I got there in the end. And Meanwhile, I was working with some incredible women. I had a lot of clients in Australia at the time. I had Kresh, who's been on both my podcasts, because I reran it on this podcast. She got her director role, so she was a promotion, and she really like had that imposter syndrome come over her. So I helped her over like a short space of time. I think it was 4 or 5 months we worked together, and she really nailed that. And then I worked with Shima, who not only got a promotion into a director role, but also moved from Australia to Singapore on her own because she was single. And, so that was not just about how do I step into a new market in a more senior role, but have my first team, but how do I move to this new country and make friends and potentially even get on the dating scene? And that was the whole conversation that we had with Shima. And I worked with her for a good couple of years, which was awesome to just walk that path with her. And then there's a couple of others, one who was returning to work after maternity and going through a relationship breakdown, stepping into a new senior role. Another lady who went into a completely different industry. So she went from corporate into like a government role, which was hugely different, a hugely different culture that she was dealing with in the change. And I really supported her through that transition. So all these transitions were coming into play, and it was really clear to me that I love being all up in my clients' lives when they are going through these changes. So transitions have been one thing that I've spoken about a lot, and I've also brought these transitions to the podcast, and I've also spoken about my own, right? But the one I haven't really spoken about, which is what I'm talking about today, is this kind of corporate to coach or employee to self-employed or employee to entrepreneur, even that kind of journey, that transition I haven't spoken about. Anyway, so Modern Leader was born. Modern Leader became the Modern Leader Way. And it was interesting when I first launched this show, this podcast, I was like, do I call it Modern Leader or do I call it the Modern Leader Way? And I went Modern Leader and then I changed it to the Modern Leader Way about a year later. So again, there was that intuitive kind of knowing, but I didn't necessarily listen to it at the time because I was like so consumed with getting this out in the world and how I would convey the message and how it was going to land and how it's going to divide and all this kind of thing. And actually, it never works out as seriously as you think it's going to. But here we are. Here we are today. And what I have noticed more recently in the last 12 months or so, I would say, is that a lot of the women that come to me for a game plan strategy session or a game changer strategy day, the VIP days that I run, is that they've got an inkling that they need a change that's quite drastic. And that conversation gets me lit up. I get so excited when someone says to me, I know it's not this anymore. This career that I've created for myself, this corporate, this successful career that my friends are like so proud of me about or even envious about because of, how it looks to the outside world, how it looks on paper. It looks successful in brackets, in commas, in inverted commas. It looks successful, and yet I do not feel successful. I do not feel the way I feel like I should feel. And so there's something missing or something is off. And I can't help but get excited when someone comes to me with that. And a couple of examples are Tracy came to me to say, I'm coming up for 55 and I could retire early. I've sought the advice of a financial advisor and the figures check out. But, I've been here for 30 years. And what else would I do? And like, is it really a good idea? And we had a game plan session. It was a really powerful 90-minute session where in that, I didn't ask her straight away, but in the follow-up support that she got, I said to her, where have you landed? And she's like, it's a no-brainer. I have to leave. I have to go and do something else. And that to me just is like, it's like the clouds part and the birds sing and it's like hallelujah. It's like that is how I feel because I've been there, right? And okay, my situation was slightly different. I was made redundant, but I saw that as an opportunity to go and do something different. And here I am 8 years later talking about how different it gets to be and how you have no idea what that could look like or how it could evolve until you just let it and allow it. So I have no fear for people when they come to me and say they may be made redundant, for example, because I know that whilst they're in their fear at the moment, that there is opportunity out there for them. So that was one example with Tracy. Another example was with Geraldine, who came to me recently for a VIP day, and I met her actually at a leave and do, funny enough, for Swiss Re at the company that I used to work for. And I met like half the people I knew. It was great to catch up with them. Half of them I didn't know, but they kind of all said, "Oh, I know who you are from LinkedIn and from your presence on there," which was, I guess, good to know that all my efforts online is not kind of lost in the ether like it feels like it is sometimes. But Geraldine, I actually chatted to, and she was sort of she was showing me this website where she's set up this garden design business, and I was like, oh wow, so you know that you're here to do something different. And she's like, oh yeah. And then she messaged me afterwards and said, how do I work with you? And she came to me the next week for the day. We spent an amazing day here in the glorious weather, totally immersing her in her vision of a future that wasn't doing what she is doing now. Now she's at that age where she is also thinking about like she's financially secure. She doesn't necessarily need to work full time. Maybe she could go down part time and start this um, side business with a view to making it bigger. But actually, when we really tapped into her vision of a future, it looked very different to that. And she had a very clear idea of what it looked like. And we came up with her game plan over the course of the day. And it was super powerful just to help her tap into what she needs to do, the next steps that she gets to make, how she gets to transition from where she is today to where she wants to be, where she sees herself in the future, and just to see the lightness in her face and the excitement that was coming through when we were talking about it. It was just, again, it gives me life. It gives me fucking life to see a woman come alive when she sees what else is out there for her. Because it's in her vision. It's not because someone else has said you can do this thing. It's not because I've said, what about this? It's because we've tapped her in, we've reconnected her to the truth of who she is, and we've allowed that space, that just taken her out of that chaotic situation that she's in day to day, taken her out of that situation, given her an environment where she can really connect, really ground into what it is that she sees for herself. And she saw it. Now, this has led me to where I am today, which is a slight departure from who I'm talking to and what it is that I'm really here to help with. Now, I have been talking about helping women transition within corporate, and that is certainly something I can still do, right? And if you've been on the fence for a while, now is your time to move before I change all my packages. Um, but certainly I have a one-to-one package called Transition, which is to do exactly that. It's to once you've decided what you want to do, which is the game plan situation, then I can help you actually in that transition. The slight tweak in what it is that I am here to really support the woman who is willing and ready to make the bigger moves, whether that's a career change. So it could still be from corporate to corporate, as in it's a different company, it's a different avenue, it's a different line of work or whatever, different industry maybe. That could still absolutely apply. Or it could be going from being in corporate to being a coach like I am, or from being employed to self-employed in some way, shape, or form, or be like through that redundancy and really exploring what it is that you do after redundancy, or even early retirement, like retiring early. What else would I do? Maybe that's some philanthropic work you can get involved in. Maybe you've had this mission on your heart all this time, but it's just been distracted by the career, and now it's your time to go and make a difference in the world, make an impact, hit the ground running. These are the things, these are the transitions that I really want to get involved in. That's where I feel like I can add the most bang for your buck in terms of like when I'm lit up by it, you can't help but being like borrowing that self-belief, borrowing that lack of fear, um, and actually riding on that wave as you go through that transition yourself. So as you can tell, it is a natural evolution because it has always been about these things I've spoken about. It's always been about the food freedom. It's always been about the self-awareness. It's always been about the personal development and the unbecoming who you're not so that you can actually step into who it is that you are becoming. And it's always been about looking at whose version of success has driven you to the point that you are today. And is that still true for you? Does that still fit for you? Or is there a little niggle, a little voice saying it's not this, but you haven't yet tapped into what that could be, what that could look like? That's where I come in. That's where I get super excited. That's where I want to be all up in your life, helping you get on path and on purpose for you in this one life that you've been given, because it is way too short to be chasing someone else's dreams. And when your surface level of success starts to feel like it's at the detriment to a deeper feeling of fulfillment, that's when you know it's time to look at whether or not you need to redefine success on your terms, get off that treadmill and onto your path. Whew. So that, my loves, is what is coming. If you've got this far, you're still listening and you're intrigued, I have a new freebie that you might have heard me talk about the last few weeks. It's called the Modern Leader Success Roadmap. It is a downloadable PDF that you get on signing up with your email. It's completely free otherwise. It puts you on my email list as well. It's about redefining success, reclaiming yourself, and starting to live life on your terms. So it takes you through the foundational steps I go through with my clients to look at what version of success you've been living off, striving for to today, and then what success could look like to you based on what's really important to you today, based on where you see yourself in the future. And from there, there are many avenues that you can start to work with me. I have just done a complete overhaul of my website. This is when I know it's on point for me because I am totally in flow. On Sunday, it was raining. Adam had just been out for a really long run. He didn't really want to do anything, which is rare for him. So he was sat on the sofa. I took my laptop, sat on the sofa, and just decided to rewrite my entire website along the lines of this. So you can go to any time, www.emmaclaytonxo.com. You will see my beautiful new website, and you will be able to get your success roadmap from there and then explore the ways that we can work together. If you know that something is missing and something is off, but you just haven't got the headspace to think about what next, Time Out Spain is the place where you get to explore that. That is the whole point of Time Out, taking you out of the chaos of your day-to-day grind and giving you the space to reconnect to yourself and what it is that you want from this life. 4 days, deep, deep and meaningful conversations about what it is you could do with your life. This is your last chance to get on in on that. I need to close the doors by the 23rd of August, which is a month before we go on the 24th of September. So if you want to be in or you want to chat to me about whether or not Time Out Spain is for you, then you can find the link to book a discovery call in the show notes or check out my website for more details there. If you know what it is actually, but you just have got so many thoughts swirling around in your head about it, and you just want to talk it through with someone that is independent from anything, independent from your home life, from your work life, and can really steer you to get into your own decision, to your own game plan, then game plan is for you. Or if you want to go really deep on that and what that looks like for you, Game Changer Strategy Day. These are brilliant. You come to me in Kent, I'm near Dover. There is an option to add on an overnight stay if you want to in my Airbnb, and we have dinner together. Otherwise, you come to me from 10 till 4, and that is plenty of time for us to go really deep. Again, taking you out of that daily grind and allowing you the space to really ground into what it is that you want to create in this lifetime and come away still with your game plan. And then if you know what that thing is, You know what you need to do next. You know what the big moves are, and it feels fucking scary and bold as fuck to do it. But you know you have no choice but to do it. And the time is now. Then you need to reach out to me about my one-to-one private mentorship because this is where I get all up in your life and I support you every step of the way. I hold your hand as you go through making those difficult moves, having the difficult conversations with all the people in your world, with your work, with going through the actual transition itself. I support you in the identity shift that it's going to take for you to shift from where you are today to who it is that you're becoming in this new vision of your life. That is the one-to-one mentorship that I do. It's all about who you're becoming, who you're being on the way as you work through this transition. That's for you. You can find all that information and more on my new website at emmaclaytonxo.com. Get the success roadmap. That's the great first starting point. Um, and yeah, if you want to chat, I do some free discovery calls as well every week. So very happy to get on the phone and chat to where you're at now. Yeah, what's coming up for you as you start to think about moving towards what it is that you want. And let's help you take that next step. So that is what I wanted to cover off with you today. I thank you for being here again. Next week, I'm going to get into the modern leader framework, the pillars of success, as I'm calling it. And this is the identity shift that I've just referred to. This is what the work I do in my private one-to-one mentorship is. And this is what you're going to see more of a flavor come through in my content over the next few months as I shift my messaging to talk to that person. And if that's you, I cannot wait to have a conversation in the DMs. It's just started raining, so I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for being here, and until next time, take care.